theyeshiva.net.
Pesachim Yud Ches Amud Aleph, 14 lines from the top. The line starts, Mashke Sa Ruach. Mashke Sa Ruach. We're holding at the words Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Omer. Let's recall that the Gemarah quoted a Braisa on Daf Tez Zayin Amud Aleph, and it continued to discuss this Braisa. Namely, there are three opinions of the Tanoim about how you view mashkin, liquid, from a Torah perspective. Reb Meir said that what mashke could become, we're going to need chumashim today, yeah? We have chumashim? Okay, yeah. Just take a chumash because we're going to need a chumash. Reb Meir says that what liquid could become tamei min ha-Torah, but it cannot transfer tumah min ha-Torah. Reb Yossi and Reb Shimon said, no, liquid can become tamei min ha-Torah, and it can transfer tumah from Torah, biblical tumah, to other foods, if the mashke touches food. Rabbi Yehuda went and said that it even can be metame kalim. Okay, so the Gemarah previously analyzed Rabbi Yehuda, and ultimately concluded that Rabbi Yehuda retracted his position from many other sources that we saw. But now we go to the view of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, who said not only can mashke become tamei min ha-Torah, but mashke can also transfer tumah min ha-Torah. Unlike Reb Meir, who said that mashke could become tamei min ha-Torah, but it cannot transfer tumah min ha-Torah. And the practical result would be that if there's a suffix, if it's a biblical tumah, you go l'chumra, and if it's a rabbinic tumah, you go l'kula. It's lenient. According to Reb Meir, mashke being metami something else can only be rabbinic, never biblical. It will not transfer tumah. It could become tummy, but it can't transfer tumah. And therefore, if you ever have a suffix, for example, if you had a stick with tamadika water and you sprinkled it and you're not sure if it touched the truma bread or it didn't touch the truma bread, Reb Meir would say a kohen can eat the bread because it's a suffix only the rabbanon. Because even if you eat it and it became tummy, at worst it's a rabbinic tumah. It's not a biblical tumah, even if it became tummy. Right? So if it's a suffix, the rabbi said you could go leniently. But if, according to Reb Shimon and Reb Yossi, mashke could transfer tumah min ha-Torah, so if it's a suffix, if that water that was tummy got onto the bread, I'm not sure, it's 50-50, then it's a suffix d'oraisa. Because if I eat the bread and it really got wet, that bread is tamei min ha-Torah, not min rabbanan. Because min ha-Torah mashke could transfer tumah, and therefore whenever you have a suffix, if it's a tumah min ha-Torah b'rishus hayachid, you're going to say that what? You go stringent, you take the stringent position, and you're not allowed to eat that truma because it is a suffix tumah. That was the shitta of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. So, the Gemarah is now going to analyze that view of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, say, la'oichlin tmeyin. When the doubt of whether the tameh liquid touched food, then tmeyin, the halach is that this food is tameh. Because according to them, mashke can transfer tumah min ha-Torah. So when liquid becomes tameh, so let's be practical. Liquid became tameh how? It touched, let's say, a sheretz, or it touched a keli that touched a sheretz. If it touched a sheretz, it's a rishon. If it touched a keli that touched a sheretz, it's a sheni. If it now touches a piece of bread, right, mashke that's a rishon touches a piece of bread, Reb Shimon will say that bread is tameh min ha-Torah. And if it's truma, right, even if it's a shlishi, it gets tameh min ha-Torah. So that is the view of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, and therefore if you have a suffix, you say tameh. But lekelim tahirim. If the suffix is only on kelim, meaning I have a stick with water and the water is tameh, and I sprinkle the water and I'm not sure it touched the bowl or it didn't touch the bowl. It touched the metal bowl or it didn't touch it. I'm not sure. It touched the metal fork or it didn't touch the metal fork. Does that metal fork have to go to the mikveh or not? Right? Does it have to go to the mikveh? If the mashke touched it, I'm not sure. If it touched it, it has to go to the mikveh. But I'm not sure if it touched it. So what is Reb Shimon going to say? And then a kohen takes the fork and he sticks it into the truma. Right? He sticks it into the olive of truma and eats it. What's the status? If this fork was tameh, because it touched water that was tameh, now it touches truma, so what happens? I can't eat this truma anymore. Say, oops, bad fork to use for truma, this truma has to be burnt. Or I say no, it's a suffix kalim. So the Pshei would say l'kalim tahirim. If it's a suffix, if it touched the keli, it's going to be tahir. Why? Because the transference of tumah from liquid to kalim is only rabbinic. The transference of tumah from liquid to food is biblical, and therefore a suffix would make it tameh. But the kalim is only rabbinic, and therefore a suffix would keep it tahir. It's a suffix tumah de rabbanon, and the Chachamim did not make something tameh if it's a doubt, even if it's in a private domain. That's what the Brisa taught us. No, that's before. Saruach means putrid. That's earlier. That's not gonna. No. Start Rabbi Yossi. After Saruach, put in a period. Yeah. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Naimrim, la'oichlin tmeya, l'kelim tahayra. Meaning, if it's a suffix, if the mashke that's tamei touched oichel, we say the oichel is tamei. If it's a suffix, if the mashke tamei touched the keli, we say the keli is touched. How do I know that? How do I know it's a suffix? How did I know from this Gemara? I'll tell you, not because I'm a genius and not because I'm a prophet, but if you go to Tazayin Amid Aleph, top line of Tazayin Amid Aleph, literally the top line, right? This is the Brisa. Oh, so that's the continuation? Yeah, look, take a look at the last word, Tesvav Amid Beis. Tesvav Amid Beis is the last word. The Tanya, there's a Brisa. Suffix mashkin litamei. Tamei. If it's a suffix, if liquid became tamei, a tameidik person is sitting near a cup of water, near a kvart with water, and his leg is there, and we're not sure if he touched the water. It's a suffix mashkin litamei. Tamei, it's tamei. Litamei acherim. If it's a suffix of the mashke came in contact with others to make it tamei tahor. Divrei Reb Meir. Why? Because Reb Meir holds that mashke becomes tamei min haTorah, but it transfers to him only midrabanan. So if it's a question if the liquid is tamei, you say tamei. But if it's a question if it transferred to me, you say tahor. V'chein oyer Reb Elazar oimer kedvarav. Reb Yehuda oimer lakol tamei. Anything that's a question if mashke touched its food or kalim is tamei, because everything is min haTorah. Rabbi Yossi Reb Shimon oimrim la'oichlin tmeim la'kalim tahayrim. But you see how it was introduced. It was introduced as suffix mashkin l'tamei tamei l'tamei acherim tar, and we understand why. If it's a vadai, everyone is moida that the keli is tamei, at least rabbinically. The Rabbanon made a gzeira that when mashke that's tamei touches a keli, the keli becomes tamei. That's the halacha, right? If you have mashke that's a rishon, and the mashke touches a keli, the keli becomes a sheni. That's the chiddush of the Rabbanon. But that's if it's a vadai. If it's a suffix, if it's only a Rabbanon, you're going to say it's tahor. If it's a deraisa, you're going to say it's tamei. So Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon hold la'oichlin tamei and l'kelim tahor. So we're back now to this brisa to analyze it. We discussed earlier the view of Rabbi Yehuda, and now we discuss the view of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. And then you're right. If it was the saliva of a zav that touches a keli, and that's a suffix, then everybody is going to say that it's tamei because that's a tumah min haTorah. Because the saliva of a zav is an av hatumah. And if it touches a keli, the keli becomes a rishon. But mashke can't be an av hatumah. Mashke can't be an av. It's a regular mashke. Let's say mashke that touches a sheretz is a rishon. Atazah, right, the regular mashke. It's true that the Chachamim said that mashke should be metame kelim because they were worried about mashke hazav, about the spittle of a zav. That's why they made this whole din. But most mashkins are not going to make a keli or rishon because they're not av hatumas, right? They're only rishon latumas at best. So they can make a keli, a sheni, only midirabbanan. Rabbi Yehuda did have a different opinion, which the Gemara rejected and said that he himself retracted, that kelim could become a sheni min haTorah. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabba Bachana Amar Yesh Lakish. Rabbi, the son of a man named Bar Chana, said in the name of Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yossi b'shittas Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Amora. Rabbi Yossi developed this view, following the shitta of Rabbi Akiva, his Rebbe. In other words, this idea that Rabbi Yossi introduced about Tumas Mashkin is following the thought system of his teacher, Rabbi Akiva. Because Rabbi Akiva was the Rebbe of Rabbi Yossi. And here we have to remember the story that the Gemarah tells us in Yevama is Daf Samach Beis. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students. They passed away in that famous Mageifa between Pesach and Shavuos. One of the great reasons we have the mourning during Avelos, during Sfiras HaOmer. What happened with Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva now was a Rebbe without Talmidim. And the Gemarah says, Haya ha'olam shamem. The world was desolate. The world of the Jewish people, the world of Torah was desolate because Rabbi Akiva, the great master, lost all of his students. It's hard for us to appreciate today the magnitude of the tragedy, but understand, after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, and you had Rabbi Akiva, who was the Gadol Hador, the great teacher, and now he lost all of his students. So it says the Jewish world was shamem, it was completely destroyed, desolate. Ad shebar Rabbi Akiva l'Rabbi Seinu shebedarim. What did Rabbi Akiva do? He didn't surrender and throw in the towel. He looked for new Talmidim, and he came down south, and he found 5 students. And with these 5 students, he rebuilt the whole Jewish world. He rebuilt the whole world of Torah. Who were these 5 students? These 5 students were, Rashi brings, Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi, Reb Shimon, and Reb Elazar ben Shamua. Those are the 5 students. And they become really the great students who rebuild the whole world of Torah after the 24,000 pass away. So you have Reb Meir, you have Reb Yehuda. It's without a Dibra Maschil. It's the previous Dibra Maschil is Reb Ashi. Reb Ashi Amar La'olam Lagamri. And in the middle of that, Rashi says, Reb Yossi Talmido She Reb Akiva Hoya. Kedetanya b'Yevamis ba'abal Yevemtai. In Gemarah in Yevamis Perek Abal Yevemtai Samach Beis. V'Hoya ha'olam shamem, the world was desolate. At Shabar Rabbi Akiva Eitzel Rabbi Seinu shebedarim. Till Rabbi Akiva came to our teachers in the south. V'Shanalem, and he taught them the Torah. V'Eluin Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi, Reb Shimon, and Reb Elazar ben Shamua. And with them, Rabbi Akiva rebuilt Torah. And it's fascinating. We don't know the names of the 24,000 students. But these 5 students, we know their names, we know their teachings. We've just learned moments ago the view of Reb Meir, we learned a few moments ago the view of Reb Yehuda, and now we're learning the view of Reb Yossi and Reb Shimon. These are 4 of the students of Rabbi Akiva who rebuilt Torah, and throughout the whole Mishnayos and Gemarah and Sifri and Sifra and Midrashim, these names are from the greatest names of the Tanoim who really revived and revitalized the world of Torah and transmitted it to the next generations. Probably. Rebbe Elazar, you're saying Rebbe Elazar is also Rebbe Elazar ben Shamua, yeah. Oh, you're right, very good. I think so, yeah. Somewhere in the south. I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. In other words, he had to completely transplant himself. That's the point. Rabbi Akiva couldn't just sit in Beis Medrash and wait for 24,000 people to show up to the shir. There was nobody left. So he had to go and restart his life over again. Rabbi Akiva is the man who reinvents himself again, and yet again, and then yet again. Remember that his parents are not Jews. So there's a conversion in the family. So that's the first reinvention, from a non-Jew to a Jew. Yeah. For 40 years, Rabbi Akiva didn't learn even the Aleph Beis. At the age of 40, there's a rebirth. He has to reinvent himself. Yeah. And Mamish has to reinvent himself anew, and he becomes the greatest scholar and leader of the generation. And now he has 24,000 students. He reached the peak of his life, and they all die. So he's left with nothing, and he goes and he reinvents himself again, becoming a teacher to five students. That's Rabbi Akiva. And as a result of that, when we say Rabbi Yossi b'shittas Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Amar. Rashi wants to explain what's the context of this. That's why he says Rabbi Akiva was the Rebbe of Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi, the son of Bar Chana, the name of Rish Lakish, is saying this view of Rabbi Yossi you can appreciate when you study the view of Rabbi Akiva, and you'll see that Rabbi Yossi is following the Shita, the Mahalach, the idea of Rabbi Akiva. What do we have from Rabbi Akiva that inspired or triggered or gave birth to this idea of Rabbi Yossi? And the answer is, but before I go further, I just want to say something from the Tzlach. The Tzlach asks a question. Reb Shimon was also a student of Rabbi Akiva, not only Rabbi Yossi. So why didn't Rish Lakish say, Rabbi Yossi v'Reb Shimon b'shittas Rabbi Akiva Rabbam Amru? Why does he pluck out Rabbi Yossi, not Reb Shimon? Reb Shimon was also a student of Rabbi Akiva. And remember, this opinion is held by two people, Rabbi Yossi and Reb Shimon. The Tzlach says a very geschmack of art, and he says, because we'll see later on Amid Beis, Yitchas Amid Beis, that Rabbi Yossi himself may have had a different opinion. So Rabbi Yossi is actually almost quoting Rabbi Akiva. When Rabbi Yossi says this view, it's Bishitas Rabbi Akiva Rabba. In other words, he's expressing what his teacher Rabbi Akiva would have said. He himself might differ. But Reb Shimon actually, he himself embraced this view. So it wasn't only the shita of Rabbi Akiva, it was also his own shita. That's why he says it only on Rabbi Yossi. It's a pella. Rabbi Yossi b'shittas Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yossi is, so to speak, conveying, he's being a mouthpiece for his Rebbe. Reb Shimon is not being a mouthpiece for his Rebbe. Reb Shimon is also being a mouthpiece for himself. And that we'll understand later when we see how the Gemara gets to analyze the particular individual view of Rabbi Yossi. Just wanted to make mention of that. Yeah, we'll see on Amid Beis, and Rabbi Yossi himself. Yeah, obviously Rabbi Meir didn't follow Rabbi. Yeah. A Talmud doesn't have to follow the shit of his Rebbe. The whole Shas is Talmudim arguing with their Rebbes constantly. The idea that a Talmud follows the shit of his Rebbe is alien to Talmud Bavli. It's alien. Talmud, the real Talmud, if he agreed, he agreed. If he didn't agree, he wasn't allowed to agree. If he didn't feel that was the truth, he wasn't allowed to. He wouldn't agree. It's not like my Rebbe said it automatically. I just accept it. The real Talmud analyzed it and scrutinized it, of course, with tremendous respect and tremendous humility. He was looking for the truth. He wasn't looking to outsmart his Rebbe. Never. But if he disagreed, he disagreed. That's an important principle in Judaism. Right? Talmid hayosim mekulam, Talmid hamachkim es Rabba. Says the Gemara, the Dorish. Rabbi Akiva has a drasha on the word yitma. Yitma, yitame. I'm going to ask you to open your Chumash because there's going to be now the analysis of words. Now, we did these psukim earlier, so you're going to be familiar with these psukim. But these psukim really, in this sugya, these psukim have to be ingrained. If you could please go to page 1, these blue chamashim, page 314. We're looking for Vayikra Perek Yud Aleph, Leviticus chapter 11. Pasuk Yud... Okay, let's do Pasuk Chavtes, right? Vayikra Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Chavtes. V'zelechem hatamei b'asheretz hasheretz ala aretz hachoyled ha'achbar hatzav l'mineu ha'anoka ha'koyach halta ha'chaymet batin shams. This is what shall be tamei in a sheretz. A sheretz is a type of rodent, sometimes a rodent or similar to a rodent. Maybe it's not always a rodent that's on the ground. The choyled, the achbar, let's say certain types of weasels, certain types of mice, certain types of lizards, certain type of mole rats. Whatever the meaning of all these 8 species are, but when they die, that's how I know that they're not alive. If you touch them when they're dead, you shall become tamei till the night. Which means even if you go to the mikveh, you have to wait till the night. What about if the sheretz falls on something? Anything it falls on, when it dies, will become tamei. Anything? No. Kliates, a utensil of wood, beged, a cloak, that could be wool, linen, or leather, a sack, which is usually made from the hair of a goat. Kol kli ashiyasa malacha mahem, any keli that you could do malacha with, meaning it has to be a usable utensil that you could do work with. Ba'mayim yuva v'tamei adar v'tar, must go to the mikveh and still wait till the evening, and then the keli will become tahor. Beautiful. I have here the yisoid that a sheretz that's dead generates tumah. Anything that falls on my beged, that beged is tamei. It falls into my pot, that pot is tamei. a wooden pot, a metal pot. What about a kli cheres? Kol kli cheres asher yipol mem el toichoi. An earthenware keli that the sheretz that's dead falls in el toichoi. And it's interesting, before in the previous pasuk it said yipol alav mayhem. It falls on it. By klei cheres the word changes, el toichoi. What's toichoi? Toichoi means it's inside space. This is where we learn that klei cheres metame ba'aviroi. Even if the dead mole rat did not touch the walls of the keli, let's say it was suspended inside the ear space of the keli, the whole keli becomes tamei. The keli asher yipam atoichoi kol asher b'soichoi yitma. Anything that's in the keli becomes tamei va'oisoi boiru, and the keli can't go to the mikveh because it's cheres, it's earthenware. You have to dissolve it, you have to make it disjoint, which is breaking it up. It's earth, so you break it up, and then if you want to put it back together, it's fine. But as long as it remains intact, it's not tahir. It's a tamedika klei cheres. Now it says kol asher b'soicha yitma. Anything that's inside is tamei. That would mean anything in it. So pasuk lamed daled qualifies. This is the key pasuk. When I say anything, I mean any food that's eaten, that water came on that food. Remember, water has to first touch the food. It has to be wet in order for it to become tamei. Yitma, that food will be tamei. And any liquid that you drink in any vessel also becomes tamei. That's the literal interpretation of this pasuk. That what? That if in this earthenware potter I put in food or I put in drinks, this food and this drink becomes tamei. Why? Because it touched a keli that had tumah from a sheretz. So that means I put a sheretz into my klei cheres. Let's say this is a klei cheres. It's not, but let's say it's a klei cheres. It's an earthenware cup, right? And a dead sheretz falls into it, even if it doesn't touch it. It's just in the ear space. Certainly if it falls into it. Now I take it out, so it's gone. It's gone. But this keli cheres became tamei. It's a biblical tumah. It says clearly, I have to break it if I want it to be tamei. Now, if I put in food into this, the food comes in contact with the keli, right? Yes, the ear space remains tamei, which exactly up to the surface. Which means if I now take challah and I suspend it in the ear space of the keli, right? This food now contracts tumah from the keli. The keli is a rishon because the keli came in contact with a sheretz, and now the food becomes a sheni. So that's what he says. Or if I pour in wine, and what if this wine is truma, right? This wine is now tamei. The kohen cannot drink this wine anymore. Why? Because it became tamei from the keli, which became tamei from the sheretz. That's what this pasuk is telling us. Any food that was in the keli and any mashkin that was in the keli is tamei. By the way, the Torah does not say any keli that was in the keli becomes tamei. Let's say I take a little fork or a little knife and I put it into the keli. Will that fork and knife become tamei? The answer is absolutely not. Why? Because a keli can't be metame a keli. That's what I learned from here. Keli can be metame oichlin and mashkin. And this is the source, this is the exclusive source, that a keli could become tamei only from an av. In other words, a keli can only be a rishon. A keli could never become a sheni. Because if a keli could become a sheni, why does the Torah say food and drinks? Even kalim that went into the keli should become tamei. If I take a metal little spoon and I put it into this clay keli, it touched a keli that's tamei. That keli will not become tamei. A keli can't be a sheni. A keli can only be a rishon or an av. That's the halacha that we learned from here. Oichlin and mashkin could be a sheni because they touch the keli, which touch the sheretz, and therefore they become a rishon and a sheni. They become a sheni because they touched the keli, which touched a sheretz. The kli cheres becomes a rishon. If the sheretz is taken out now, the kli cheres itself is a rishon, and now the food in it becomes a sheni. Of course, if the sheretz is still inside and the challah touches the sheretz, then of course the challah is a rishon. But we're talking about the sheretz is gone, right? Or even if the sheretz is not gone, the food did not touch the sheretz, and therefore the food is tamei from the keli, not from the sheretz. If a sheretz falls into the mikveh, I would take it out. A dead mole rat? What did you have? A dead mole rat in your swimming pool. Okay. I would take it out even beside Tumah and Tara. Yeah. No, let's remember, mikveh water will never become Tameh. Mikveh water is immune to Tumah, because if it wouldn't be immune from Tumah, then all mikvahs would be Tameh and they couldn't cleanse anybody. So the fact is, whenever water is in a mikveh and it's a kosher mikveh, that water is a transformed entity. It's immune to Tumah. Not only is it immune to Tumah, it removes Tumah. Not only does it not contract Tumah, it gets rid of Tumah. It extricates the Tumah from the person or the keli who went into the mikveh. So that's the rule, which is actually in Pasuk Lamed Vav. Ach mayon obor mikveh mayim yiyeh tahor, right? But if you're in the mikveh and you're touching a dead sheretz, you're not going to become tahor. The mikveh will not do the trick. Right? That's Pasuk Lamed Vav, exactly what you asked. Excellent question. Excellent question. We don't say that we consider the whole avir, right, with tumas sheretz. That the whole avir, even if I take out the sheretz, it's like the sheretz is still in the avir. We don't say that, because if we would, then if I put in a keli, the keli would have to become tameh from the sheretz. Right? We don't say that. The sheretz is a sheretz. The avir affects the keli and the avir to become tameh from the sheretz, but they're called a rishon, not an av anymore. Because if the avir itself would be considered as though it's filled with the sheretz, if I would have to imagine that the whole ear space is sheretz, then even a keli that goes in would become tameh, because it would be tameh from a rishon, from an av. We say no. The sheretz is a sheretz. The sheretz affects the ear space and the keli to become a rishon l'tumah. So now if food goes in, the food becomes a sheni. But if a keli goes in, it won't become a sheni, because a keli can't be a sheni. A keli can only be a rishon. How do I know? I don't. But the Torah tells me that only food and drinks in the klei cheres will become tameh, nothing else. The space, yes. I don't mean the molecules of the ear. I mean the ear space of the keli. The space of the keli internally. That's what we mean. That space. But here we're just talking about the idea that the internal cavity where you put the objects of a keli, I fill the water up in the internal cavity, right? That is enough to make it tameh. No, klei cheres you can't be tovel, right? Oh, you're seeing if it was the ear, you could be a tovel. It's not the ear, it's the space of the ear. Yeah, the Shemesh Shmuel. Right. It's a rishon, yeah. The Shemesh Shmuel brings from his father, the Avnei Nezer, who heard this from his father-in-law, the Kotzker Rebbe. The Kotzker Rebbe explained a beautiful vart why klei cheres has this unique halacha. Any other keli doesn't have it. If I have a golden bowl, mamish pure gold, expensive, exquisite, right? And a dead sheretz is suspended in the ear space, nothing happens. The keli is fine. Take it out and you're good. If it touches the wall or the outside, the exterior and the interior, the whole thing is tameh. But with klei cheres, it's not that way. If a sheretz touches the back wall of a klei cheres, it's tar. It's all good. If it goes inside, even if it doesn't touch anything, it's tameh. What would be the logic? You could say it's xeris hakasa, but what's epis? Any other keli doesn't have this halacha. If you touch the outside or the inside, it's tameh. If it just goes into the airspace, it's nothing. Klei cheres is the exact opposite. You touch it from the outside, nothing. Yeah. This is much more chashav. So the Kotzker Rebbe says a beautiful word. A beautiful word. And he says, metal has value. Certainly, gold, silver, all metals is a value. What's cheres? How do you make cheres? You take earth, you mix it with water, it's mud. It's cheres is mud. You ever saw anybody do earthen pottery? It's mamish mud. You ever saw it? It's pashat mud. You take earth, you take water, you could take a little straw to keep it together. That's how they did it in Egypt. Clay. Yeah, clay. You're giving it a fancy word. It's mud. Okay. It becomes clay, yeah. You put in a little straw. You fashion it, right? You make the shape. Let's say you want a cup. You make the shape. And then you bake it. You put it in an oven, or you put it under the sun, or you put it in a furnace, and it bakes. Yeah? So essentially, It's the cheapest. It's one of the cheapest forms of kalim. It still has some prominence because you have to shape it and you bake it. It's not like klei adama. Klei adama means it's mamish made from earth without anything. You don't even bake it. That's so cheap, it's not even makabel tumah. Klei adama are not makabel tumah. Klei cheres are makabel tumah. So he says something very interesting. A regular keli, let's say made of gold or silver, metal or wood, what's the value of the keli? The keli itself. It has value. Metal has value. Wood has value. Klei cheres, what's the value of the keli? Not the keli itself. The fact that it could contain something. The fact that you could put something into it. The fact that what makes the value? That which it carries. That which it is filled with, not the keli itself. B'meila, remember, tumah is always commensurate with dignity. The more dignity, the more tumah, right? A behemoth is not makabel tumah when it's alive. Yeah. The highest level of tumah is what? A mace. And a Jewish mace even more. Because it's always commensurate with chshivas. Animal fodder is not makabel tumah. Human food is makabel tumah, right? The more something is on a higher level of use for a person, the more the powers of tumah are attracted to it. So he says, buy a keli that has chshivas atzmis, it has essential chshivas. So the tumah touches it, the keli becomes tumah. A klei cheres, if you touch it from the outside, what do you touch? You touched mud, you touched nothing. But if you go into the airspace, what's the airspace? The airspace is where it contains things. That's where it carries things inside the cavity. That's how it fills. Oh, that's its chshivas. That's the keli. That's what makes it into a keli chashuv. That it could carry something, not on its own. And b'meila, that's where it's makabel tumah. But on the outside, it's not makabel tumah because it's klei cheres, it's mud. And then, of course, he adds. That's why the pasuk says, "Vayitzer Hashem Elokim es ha'adam, afar min ha'adama." A person is klei cheres. It says if a person is klei cheres, it means that the power of a person is what you carry, what you contain. Because a person sometimes looks at himself or herself, and you feel like mud, you feel inferior, you feel like nobody, right? He says, but remember what you contain in yourself, what you carry, what you can channel through you. You can channel through yourself infinity. Vayipach ba'ap of nishmas Chaim. This klei cheres is the ambassador of God in the world. So, that's a whole different mitzvahs. Klei cheres metame me'avira. That's the vart. So the glassware should be like klei cheres. So glass is an interesting maisa. So klei schuchis is a whole maisa. Yeah, klei schuchis glass because it's connected to cheres, right? With the rabbanon here. It's a metal. Yeah. Yeah, even if it's a cheap value, but it's value. But l'mashal klei galolim. There's kalim that they used to make from animal dung, right? That's not makabel tumah. They have value besides. That's the idea. Cheres is the lowest step that's still makabel tumah. It's mud, but it's baked, so it's makabel tumah. But only me'avira. Even inside, what value inside it still has value. That's the idea. What's its value that it carries? Inside it would be metal? No, for sure. Something that's not makabel tumah at all. That bechal not makabel tumah. Why? Inside it still has the cheese. I guess because it's seen as not even klei galolim. It's made of dung, so even as a carrier, it's very compromised. Klei cheres, you could put in diamonds in a klei cheres. Fakert, where do you hide the most expensive diamonds? In earthenware pottery, right? So that's the point. If it's mias, it's different. Right. Also in the excavations that they do in Israel and other places, in the klei cheres, in the clay pots, today, once they're 2,000 years old, but also they found, in the klei cheres, the Dead Sea Scrolls and all that, there was in clay vessels, klei cheres. Shem Shmuel quotes this from the Kotzker Rebbe, his Zayda. The space, the cavity, right? The toich. Yeah. No, he's explaining that the value of clay cheres is that it could carry something. Even if it's not, but that's its value. Right. The potential, yeah. Yeah. That's where its value is born, so to speak. That's where its value is born. In that potentiality. Yeah, right. The space that it carries. And the nimshal is, right, that a person, when you're viewing your value, don't get egotistical. Your value is what you're a conduit for. What could come through me. That's the great value. So now, let's see Rabbi Akiva's drasha. I'll tell you why. Because Lamed Dalet, you want to know why Lamed Gimel, Lamed Dalet are not seen as two separate halachas? Because Lamed Dalet starts off with a mem. Kol ha'oichel. From all the food, asher ya'achel. In other words, what is he saying? Look how it goes. Anything that's inside should become tamei, right? But then he says, from all the food that can be eaten. But you already said anything that's inside. Why are you qualifying now? And when you qualify, you only do food and drinks. You don't do kalim. So that's why from here I learn that if a keli falls inside the klei cheres, it doesn't ask them. Now you can ask a good question. Why did it say kol asher b'soicha yitma when you're anyway going mikol ha'oichel asher ya'achel? It should right away say kol klei cheres shibum emel toicha, right? Mikol ha'oichel. The answer is kol asher b'soicha yitma is teaching me the halacha that the avir, that the ear space becomes tameh. So that means that if my food goes into the ear space without touching the keli, the food is still tameh. That's a gewaldige chiddush. Let's say I take a piece of challah and I just put it into the keli. It doesn't touch the wall. Does the challah become tamei or not? What's the answer? The answer is yes. Why? Because it says, Koil asher b'soichoi yitma. What's koil asher b'soichoi? Rashi says that the keli is metamei, that which comes into the avir. If you're b'toichoi, if you're in my toich, you're going to become tamei. Why? From the keli, but I didn't touch the keli. Just like the keli became tamei from that which was in the avir, the keli transfers tumah to that which is in the avir. The keli and the avir have here this kinship. Usually in a keli, the tumah can only make the keli tamei if it touched the keli, and the keli can only make something else tamei if it touched the keli. Here, something goes into the avir of the keli, and the keli became tamei. Now something else goes into the avir of the keli, right? And the keli is metameyit. The tumah of the keli from the avir is now metameh, that which is in the avir. But what? Kol ha'oichel and kol ha'mashka. If they touch the outside of the keli, right? So once the keli became tameh, the whole keli is tameh. So if the bread touches the outside, it's tameh. Tameh. The chiddush is even if the bread just goes into the avir, it's tameh. And there also chiddush is that for the keli to contract tumah, it has to go inside. Either inside, touch the walls, or just inside. But if the tumah came on the outside, the keli cheres is not tameh. Yeah. Yes. Yes, the sheretz is metameh. The keli, even though it just went into the airspace, and then it's the keli that transmits the tumah to anything that comes into it afterwards. Anything that comes into it afterwards. Or even outside of it if you're in contact now with the keli. So the keli became a rishon from the sheretz, and the keli now transfers it to the oichel and the mashka, which became a sheni. Now let's say I have bread in the bottom of the keli. Okay, I have bread. And then I suspend the sheretz into the ear space of the keli. That bread is a sheni, it's not a rishon. Because the bread didn't touch the sheretz. You understand? The avir is metame the keli. The sheretz is metame the keli, and the keli is metame the bread. The bread is not called a rishon. The bread is not called a rishon. How do I know that? How do I know this? Pashut. Because if I wouldn't say this, then any keli that would be in the keli should also be tameh. Right? But we don't say that. Because it's coming from the sheretz. It's coming from the sheretz. You don't say the whole tanur, the whole keli is full of tumah. It's like this sheretz, it's full of tumah and it's metame everything. You don't say that. Because then the keli would also be tameh, not only the eichel and the mashka. Because keli is touching a sheretz. And the pasuk said clearly that if a keli touches a sheretz, it's tameh. The pshat is something else. The keli becomes tameh from the sheretz. Even though it's in the avir, it affects the keli. And the keli is metame, that which is in contact with it, like the pas. And therefore a keli is not tameh. A keli in a keli. Okay? Comes Rabbi Akiva. We got stuck just in learning the pasuk. Comes Rabbi Akiva and says, I have a question. This is always what the Chazal will do. Why doesn't it say tameh? Why an extra yud? Yitma means it will become tameh. What's wrong if it says tameh? It is tameh. What do you gain? But I'll tell you why. Because the Rabbi Shalom wants you to be able to pronounce this word in a dual way. Yitma, yitame. If it would say tameh, it wouldn't work. Tameh is tameh. I can't do yitame. Yitma, I can read yitma, which is how I have to read it, but I can also read yitame. Yitame means it should bring tumah to others. So Rabbi Akiva says from this pasuk you learn something new. That it's not just food that gets tumah from the keli. This food could now transfer tumah to the next stage, to the next level. That's what Rabbi Akiva said. This was a gewaldige word from Rabbi Akiva. Yitma should be also taught as yitame, even though that's not how we pronounce it, and it would be a wrong pronunciation. But it's written this way to give credence to this pronunciation. Yitma, yitame. Came Rabbi Yossi and said, my Rebbe did this in the first part of the pasuk. We should do it in the second part of the pasuk. My Rebbe did it for the first part with food. Let's do it with the second part, with liquid. Yitma, yitame. So you have a source that mashka is not only tameh, it's metame others. It could transfer tumah. That's why I say that if mashka touches eichel, it's a suffix d'oraisa. It's not a suffix d'rabbanan. Because if mashka touches eichel, that eichel becomes tameh. Because mashka could transfer tumah. You want to know why Rabbi Akiva didn't say the second half? Why would Rabbi Akiva already not do the second half? Okay. It's a good question. Why did Rabbi Akiva not say the whole? Why did Rabbi Akiva cutting short? You're already explaining Yitma. Explain the second Yitma. It's in the same pasuk. It's a good question. Let's put it on hold for a moment. So let's see just what the Gemarah is saying here. Rabbi Yossi b'shidduch Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Amara. The Darish Yitma is Yitame. It's Metame other things. So Rabbi Yossi says the same thing, that Mashka is Metame. The Tanan, we have a Mishnah in Saita. Boy Bayoim Darish Rabbi Akiva. On that day, Rabbi Akiva expounded. What's that day? What's that day? So here's the rule. Whenever the Mishnah uses the words Boy Bayoim, that day, it was a very famous day. What was the day? The day brings us back to a story in Masechta Brachas, Daf Chav Zayin and Daf Chav Ches. Chav Zayin Amid Beis, Chav Ches Amid Aleph. They dethroned Rebbe Gamliel from being the Nasi, the leader, the president, so to speak, of the Sanhedrin. They felt upset how he treated Rabbi Yeshua a few times. They dethroned him, and who became the new Nasi? Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. He was a young man. Harei ani keven shivim shana. He looked 70, but he was really a young man, around 18 years old. And he becomes the new leader of the Sanhedrin. He changes policy. Reb Gamliel said, not everybody could go into the Beis Medrash. You had to have bitoiche kebari. The inside and the outside had to fit. Which means you had to be a very high moral caliber. Reb Elazar ben Azariah said, no. The doors are open for anybody who wants to go learn, could learn. And the Gemarah says that many new chairs, 400 or 800 new chairs were added to the Beis Medrash because of the people who were allowed to come in under the tutelage and influence and leadership of Reb Elazar ben Azariah. That day, the Gemara says, there was not a single halacha that remained in doubt that was not resolved. There was so much Torah, there was so much discussion, there was so much new creativity and learning, because it wasn't only a select few, that the tremendous amounts of questions were answered that day. That's called Boy Bayom. That's the Boy Bayom. The Yom that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah became a Nasi. Where Gamliel had a policy, call me Shein Teichi Kabara Le'yikanos L'Beis HaMedrash. You can't come into the Beis Medrash if the inside and the outside are not in perfect symmetry. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah changed the policy. So Boy Bayom Darish Rabbi Akiva, that day Rabbi Akiva, who was in the Beis Medrash, expounded the following pasuk: V'chol kli cheres asher yipol mehem. Any kli cheres, remember pasuk lamed gimel, Yud Aleph lamed gimel. Kol kli cheres asher yipol mehem el seiche. Koil asher b'seiche yitma v'yisis ishbeiru. So Rabbi Akiva says, Eino yomer tamei ele yitma. He could have said tamei. Koil asher b'seiche tamei. The first pasuk lamed gimel. Koil asher b'seiche tamei. He doesn't say tamei. He says yitma. Why? Yitamei acherim. He wants us to know that it can also be metame achedim. If it would have said tame, I wouldn't say this. It says yitma, even though I read it yitma, the Torah wants me to know that oichel can transfer tuma. Limeid al kikar sheni sha'isa shlishi. Here is the source that a loaf of bread that's a sheni can make a shlishi, because this loaf of bread is a sheni. Remember, the sheretz is a rishon. The sheretz is an av. The klei cheres is a rishon. The kikar is a sheni. And the kikar yitame. And Rabbi Akiva holds even chulin. That's Rabbi Akiva's chiddush, which will be explored later. We're not going to get into that discussion. Not only truma, he holds even mundane food can become a shlishi. Even a mundane drink, let's say, a mundane liquid. If it's chulin, and it could become a shlishi from touching a kikar. Why? Because it says Kol asher b'soichai yitame. And what's Kol asher b'soichai? Mikol ha'oichel asher ye'achel. The food that's in it, and that food became what? A sheni. And on that we say yitame, it could make something else, which means it could make a shlishi. And he says even chulin, because the Torah doesn't distinguish here between holy food and chulin. The Torah doesn't say yitame only holy food, even mundane food. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva says that a kikar sheni can be metame even a shlishi b'chulin. Now, this detail of chulin is not the halacha, as we're going to see later. Rabbi Akiva holds that sheni could make a shlishi in chulin. We say a sheni could only make a shlishi when it comes to truma, la halacha. But the point Rabbi Akiva is making here is, yitame is that oichlin could transfer tuma to something else, even if it's chulin, and therefore yitame is written. That's why it says yitma, not tame, because tame would only mean it is tame. Yitma denotes, or at least intimates, that there is also the yitame. Based on this paradigm of Rabbi Akiva when it comes to food, Rabbi Yossi took the second yitma of liquid and taught that liquid can transfer tumah to something else as well, to other eichlin. That's the source of Rabbi Yossi's limud, following the shitta of Rabbi Akiva, as the Gemara will explain exactly what Rabbi Yossi learned from Rabbi Akiva, as the continuation of the sugya will continue to explore, will continue Be'ezer Hashem tomorrow. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, that's the issue. The Gemara sounds like here that it's talking about Pasuk Lamed Gimel, right? Yitma. And yet, if you look in Rashi, the Dorish Yitame, you see Rashi, Yud Chesam Arav, the Dorish Yitma, the Ksiv Gabay Oichlin Tmeyin Yitma, the Iyunami Dorish Yitma, the Ksiv Gabay Mashkin Tmeyin Yitame. So Rashi is actually saying the Rebbe Akiva is darshaning Lamed Daled, not Lamed Gimel. It's a shtickle pella, because the Gemara says Rebbe Akiva is darshaning Pasuk Lamed Gimel, and Rashi says Pasuk Lamed Daled.
Rashi says from Lamed Daled, Yitame, he learns in Lamed Gimel also. So the Lamed Gimel also.
Right, but the truth is, once you're learning, you learn on any Pasuk, which is the reason you asked before why.
Exactly.
Well, there's three Yitame.
And later in the Gemarah Lamed Beis, the Gemarah also says that he darshans from Pasuk Lamed Dalet. But here the Gemarah says Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Okay, that's an interesting diuk. The Gemarah brings Lamed Gimel, Rashi explains Lamed Dalet. The Gemarah later brings it from Lamed Dalet also. So in Gemarah itself you have this contradiction. We'll see later we get to Lamed Beis. This is going to be a lebedike sugya. Verstanden? Alt verstanden? What did you say? You answered. It's a problem, the Lamed Gimel.
The first pasuk is talking about Kolash Besoichai means the keli of what's inside makes something else.
Both. It's a chiddush.
So then you don't need to
First the pasuk.
together.
No, you do, because
No.
That's the, first is a klal. First is a klal. It's a klal. And then it goes on the prad.
Right.
Yes.
Klal
Klal is actually includes something else, which is the
that
keli
means
itself.
excluding something, but it's not.
well, first it says Kol Kli Cheres Asher Yipol Mehem El Toichai,
Right.
right? So that keli becomes tummy. That's a big chiddush. That's the keli. Then we say Kol Asher Besoicha Yitma. Anything that's in the keli. There's two details in Lamed Gimel. The keli becomes tummy from the tumah in the toich. Second thing is whatever is in the keli is tameh. And what do we mean anything? Even if it's only in the ear space of the keli, it's also tameh.
Right, but if you're
From the
learning
keli.
Tameh, you're also learning that it makes other things tummy.
Yeah. Then Lamed Daled, we learn what's the Kol Asher B'Soicha. You would think Kol Asher B'Soicha anything. It says no. Me from. I said anything that's inside. But what do I mean anything? Any food that's inside. When I said anything, I didn't mean anything in the planet. I meant any type of food, any type of drink.
So Lamed Gimel, you would think anything that's
Yeah, if it wouldn't add Lamed Daled, you would get.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.